With years of experience working in this field, Mr. Andrew Batt was previously a regional group editor of Property Guru. He is going to forecast the outlook of the property market in the region prior to the AEC, as well as looking at particular countries. He affirms that Asia is prominent. He sees investors outside looking to be coming into the region.
What would be the outlook for I would say, the whole region ahead of the ASEAN Economic Community in 2015?
Well, I think everyone's looking at ASEAN. And over the last year and a half, there's been a lot of money coming in that's kept property prices, by and large, on the up. I can't see that changing. I think Asia will still be very, very prominent. If you're a property investor and you're looking for returns and you're looking for a fairly safe option, yeah, you could put your money in London or you could put your money in Singapore, but they are very, obviously the cost there, you could buy 10 units in Bangkok for what you could buy 1 unit in Singapore. I think you're going to see an increase in the number of people from outside the region who will be looking at Southeast Asia in more detail. Even places like Myanmar. All it needs is for a few law changes there, and private investors will be going in. Commercial investors are already there. Arguably, anybody who's investing commercially in Myanmar has already missed the boat. There are people there who are already making a lot of money, and one of the quotes that we often hear is that the prices in Yangon
has been skyrocketed.
Skyrocketing and higher than Bangkok.
Yeah.
Land values are higher. So yeah, but just imagine when private investors have the opportunity to go in. It's not going to happen immediately. It will happen. But obviously then that's a very much a frontier market, and you wouldn't go in there unless you know exactly what you're doing. Just for Myanmar as an example, in Yangon, the premium prices for condos, unlike in Bangkok, it's generally the high floors that have the premium prices, but in Yangon, it's the low floors that have the premium prices because
of the electricity.
Correct. Absolutely, yeah, because the electric's out so much that people don't want to walk up the lift, walk up the stairs. So it's the low floors that command the premium prices. So that's something that you need to know when you're doing your due diligence. When you're checking out an area, you need to be comfortable. And yeah, Singaporeans are buying, as I said, Singaporeans are buying pretty much everywhere right now, and some of them are probably buying a little bit blind.
What do you mean by that, a little bit blind?
I'm thinking of one example of a lady who came up to me at an exhibition. She'd bought a unit in Makassar, and she'd never been there. And she was asking me what's the best way to get to her development from Suvarnabhumi. To me, that was quite scary.
Why?
Because I wouldn't buy anywhere if I hadn't seen it. Would you?
No.
You need to see the area. You need to understand the precincts, the setting,
the surroundings.
Correct. So for people in Thailand, I'm surprised there's not more looking at Malaysia. Very few of the projects in Penang that I visited recently and KL, very few are being bought by Thais. I'm not sure why, but they're very, very good value. They're probably in terms of the construction and lifestyle, it's probably very similar to Bangkok. Prices may be a little bit higher, but I can't see any reason why you wouldn't want to buy in KL, because right now there is a big supply and demand issue. There's not enough decent condos being built in KL and around. So, yeah.
So, would you say Malaysia or Myanmar, which one or somewhere else would be most attractive ahead of the AEC?
I think regardless of the AEC, you've got to buy somewhere that you're happy with, not just because of what's going to be happening. You've got to look at the property, you've got to look at the town, you've got to look at... You've got to be comfortable. If you're buying it for your own use, it's got to be obviously somewhere that you want to live. If you're buying it for rental returns, you've got to become unemotional about it. You've got to think of it from the tenant's perspective. You might like the colour of the wall, but that's your personal preference, and the tenant might want something completely different. So you've really got to think why you want the property and what it's going to be doing for you. In terms of location, look at what's happening, look at the news, follow the trends, subscribe to news alerts from Property Guru. We publish over 700 property stories every month, and talk to us. I've got editors in Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, and here in Thailand. We'll happily point you in the direction of some recent data reports. We can't tell you where to buy, but we can certainly give you the information that can point you in that direction. I mean, I've got my personal favourites, and I know that's what you're probably wanting to ask. Keep your eyes on Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Keep a watch
Why
on Vietnam. Because very few foreigners are buying there right now. If the government does relax its foreign buying rules, then it's going to literally explode in terms of popularity. I think you'll see a lot of the people who are looking at Phuket, looking at Penang, looking at Bali, suddenly they'll be switching their attentions. At least they're viewing, to start with, they're going to start looking at Vietnam, and if it proves attractive enough, very soon you could see a lot of them actually moving their buying interests there.
Has there been any feedback or reaction from the Vietnamese government when the new law will be changing?
There's no. I mean, all I've got, it's come from two sources. One of which is the CEO of the second largest developer in Vietnam, who has a team of 30 lawyers working on. I hesitate to use the word scheme. It's going to be legal because he's obviously very well connected, but a package that will allow foreigners to buy in certain areas under certain conditions, which they can't right now, in areas that they can't right now. So places like Da Nang, even Ho Chi Minh, even Hanoi, if you want to buy as a foreigner now, you can in certain areas. But to actually have the pick of a lot more and a lot more resort-style developments, then that could really shift what's happening in terms of buying intentions in Southeast Asia as a whole.
What about Myanmar?
Myanmar will be interesting, but maybe not for about the next 10 years.
10 years?
I think it's going to take that long for individual investors to really grasp what's available there, to be comfortable. Like I said before, you're not going to buy something you've never seen, and especially in somewhere like Myanmar. So even getting there and seeing what's available, and there's not an awful lot available on the private market right now. As I said, there are lots of commercial, industrial investors who are there right now, but in terms of individual investors, let's have this conversation in 10 years, and then we might see some really interesting resort-style developments. Cambodia is another place that's probably off most people's radar, but that's got some really nice developments. Places like Song Sa, that's quite a nice place as well.
But in which country or countries that we might see the market bubble?
Bubble.
Yes.
And in which word.
The B word. And in which segment of property?
Okay. You will not see it in Singapore.
Why? Why not?
Because the government is so much in control that any slight unexpected movement, they will either they will introduce tax to force less people to buy it, or they will release more land to allow developers to put more units into the market. So you won't see it in Singapore. You may see it in Indonesia if foreign buying takes off. That government there is mulling changes to the foreign ownership laws, and yes, you can buy in Bali and Lombok and places like that as a foreigner now. But if you can buy in Jakarta as a foreigner and other parts, that could result in well, the opposite of a bubble. I mean, you're going to see a lot of people wanting to buy, which will force up the price when there's not a lot of new development coming on stream. Malaysia, you've got the supply and demand issue in some parts, but then you've got places like Ipoh. I was there a couple of weeks ago, which has lots of really interesting developments that are not being marketed outside of Perak, let alone anywhere else in the world. But there's one or two that have gone to Singapore exhibitions and Hong Kong exhibition that have done really, really well. So Penang, there's a hell of a lot of development going on in Penang right now. My trip there recently was the first time for about 14 years, and it is just, there's condominiums everywhere, and there's plans for even more. So it's an exciting place. And here in Thailand, I don't think there's any chance of a bubble. I think developers are only going to build what they know they can sell. Developers are very, very savvy here. They're not going to end up with a lot of unsold stock. So I don't think you're going to see it. And I think with what's happening elsewhere in the region, I don't think you're going to see huge, strong, maintained interest from overseas. You're going to see interest from overseas, but it's not going to suddenly mushroom to like 50 times what it is now. It's not going to happen. So I think, by and large, I think everything is kind of running along nicely at the moment.
Okay, one last question. With the AEC, how do you expect the pricing mechanism will be?
I guess it means that you're going to see possibly a levelling of the playing field. But at the same time, you've got to remember, property, people will buy property when they perceive it's good value for money or when there's a potential return. And obviously to buy to live in as well. Let's use the example of a Singapore mid-market condo, mid-market private condo in Singapore for $500,000 Singapore dollars. So that's, let's say, give or take 13 million baht. For 13 million baht, you could buy quite a few, no disrespect to LPN, but LPN style 23 square metre shoeboxes in central Bangkok. Decent location. You're never going to get that parity. Suddenly, you're never going to get Singapore prices on a par with Thailand and Vietnam sort of way down here. And it's not going to happen. But what you probably see is that a lot of buyers are going to look more onto the legal side. If one country makes it easier as a foreigner to own, then they will gravitate there rather as they are at the moment. But if it suddenly becomes much easier to buy in Thailand, Thailand will benefit. If it suddenly becomes much easier to buy in Vietnam, Vietnam will benefit, Thailand will lose, Malaysia will lose, Indonesia will lose.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.